Story 1. Not investing back into yourself. Investing doesn't always have to be some major cash return. Could be education, making your life easier so you have more time and energy, or simply relaxing. I know a lot of people who played the frugal game and are just now getting out in their 70s. Story 2. Dollar stores are generally a worse food value based on size and quantity. Sure, it's $1, but the $2.25 box at the grocery store has 500% more food by weight, therefore is a much better value. You are paying a little less to get a lot less. Story 3. People not realizing that a tax return is their money to begin with, and they should have their deductions set up to break even or owe a little. A lot of people still think it's some kind of stimulus. Story 4. Just save money. No, you need to do more. Most savings are not beating inflation. As a result, your money is shrinking by doing that. One of the most insidious ways our money is effectively being stolen is just by having inflation make it worthless by the time you'll go to use it. The easiest thing I am aware of is to put it in an index fund that automatically reinvests. These are automatic funds that follow a set algorithm of stocks and index, and do not have a human element in the decision-making. They regularly outperform professionals. They typically do very well compared to inflation and require zero maintenance. Check if your work has a retirement matching program and use that. It's literally free money, and it adds up faster than you think. There is no such thing as too soon to start thinking about your retirement. Story 5. Credit cards are bad. If you use them right, you can actually come out ahead. Get a card with good cashback rewards and use it for everything. I mean everything. If you can pay your rent, bills, and insurance with it, do it. If you can use it for work and they reimburse you, do it. Pay the balance off at the end of every month and make sure you keep track of your ins and outs. It requires you to be responsible, but in the end, it's worth it. I get at least a few $1,000s a year worth of cash back to use as I please, such as trips or a PlayStation 5. Sometimes I use the rewards to pay my balance and take the funds I had allocated to pay off the balance, put them in my registered retirement savings plan, and take the tax advantage. Story 6. Keeping a balance on your credit card does not improve your credit score. What it does do is get you comfortable having a balance on your credit card, which, when it likely gets out of control, is like napalm pouring down on your future financial hopes and dreams. Story 7. That your employer will be there for you when times are bad. Build a savings. Keep a savings. You are a liability to them, not an asset, and they will ditch you the moment they can profit from it. Story 8. That only rich people invest. I hear it over and over again. It's just not true at all. Someone can spend an hour of their time and watch a couple of YouTube finance videos and understand the basics. They can open a brokerage account with very little money, like $100. They can then set up automatic deposits that follow them for their entire career, investing in their own financial security. Story 9. That you have even the smallest chance of becoming a billionaire. People do not understand the orders of magnitude difference between even a low-level multimillionaire and a billionaire. At $100 million, you are still 10 times closer to homelessness than you are to becoming a billionaire. Stop trying to get there. Stop voting for people and policies that promise you that opportunity. The only way these people achieve that wealth is through siphoning it away from everyone else. Story 10. I don't know how common it is. It's definitely not the biggest belief that credit cards can be used for emergencies. Of course they can, but it's a terrible idea. For emergencies, there are insurance and an emergency fund. Story 11. The stock market is just like gambling. You are never going to accumulate enough money to retire without using the stock market. The market has always gone up in the long term. If it stops going up in the long term, society would be in pretty bad shape and your money probably wouldn't be worth anything anyway. Story 12. That hard work will lead to wealth. This simply is not correct for the vast majority of workers, meaning anyone not in senior management positions. The truth is that the United States is a shareholder economy, not a labor economy. Even if someone is getting regular raises, they're likely barely keeping ahead of inflation. If someone isn't investing in the market right now, then they aren't actually seeing their share of the economy's increases in employee productivity. If they aren't investing in the market, they're probably going to end up working paycheck to paycheck until they die, assuming Social Security doesn't provide them enough to live on or stops existing sometime between now and when they retire. Story 13. That immigrants are taking our jobs. Like seriously, if every immigrant, legal or otherwise, disappeared tomorrow, it wouldn't do a single positive thing for me personally, much less for the wider economy. Story 14. Prices never go down. It doesn't matter if the entire price structure gets resolved downstream to lower a lot. They don't have to lower the price because they think no one else does, so the price will never go down ever. Story 15. The American dream of social mobility and meritocracy prevents voters from addressing extreme inequality. Many think riches await them too, or that if you are poor, you must be lazy or an addict and are undeserving of help. Story 16. Republicans are better for the economy. No, they aren't. We have 100 years of evidence showing that Democrats make the economy stronger and everyday Americans more prosperous. Republicans then come in, make a mess everywhere, cut the taxes of the super rich, and then blame Democrats when it goes wrong. But every election, these absolute drooling individuals come here complaining about the economy under Democrats and voting in another self-enriching grifter. Story 17. That they are going to get rich. It's unlikely, and you're better off supporting policies that benefit your current financial status versus ones you might achieve in a fantasy. Story 18. Car stuff. You need a new car when your current car reaches 100,000 miles. You need to fix everything that breaks on your car. Buying used cars is bad because all you're doing is buying someone else's problems. Foreign cars are inferior to domestic cars. Story 19. Maybe not a myth, but a perception that you must have 20% down for a house. You obviously need to calculate what you can realistically afford month to month, but most mortgages accept way less down. You will pay some private mortgage insurance, but again, don't let the 20% perception stop you before you even look. Story 20. I recently had an argument with a group of older people at work because they believe that working more than one job means paying more tax than working the same amount of hours at one job. Nothing I could say would convince them otherwise. That hasn't been the case in my country for over 20 years. I've had up to 4 jobs at a time and didn't pay more tax. Our tax is percentage-based. We have tax brackets, so what you earn over a certain amount is taxed at a higher percentage, but that would be the same percentage if the money was coming from 1 job or 10 jobs. Story 21. Credit card rewards. If you are responsible with a credit card and keep it paid off, or you are wealthy and indifferent about interest, they are fine. Most people with credit cards are getting absolutely burdened by them, but say, "Yay, I got points for purchasing," while making no effort to pay off the balance, so the rewards are essentially canceled out, if not just straight up worthless. Story 22. I know people who refuse to invest in stocks because they are too risky. In the short term, this is true, for example, less than about 5 years. But not putting retirement or other long-term savings in stocks severely limits your ability to get returns on your savings. Over a 30-year period, the lowest annual return for the Standard & Poor's 500 since 1926 was 7.8%, which is much more than you could expect from safe investments like treasuries. One important caveat is that this refers to the total stock market, for example, using an index fund, exchange-traded fund, or total market mutual fund. Picking individual stocks is generally a bad idea for long-term savings. Story 23. The biggest myth of all is that finance is just as crucial a life skill as basic hygiene, nutrition, first aid, or any other lifelong discipline that helps sustain us. Along with this is the belief that it is so complicated that it cannot be learned, or regular people cannot be trusted to practice it, and we must pay professionals for it if we do anything at all. Imagine if people put even remotely as much effort into learning this essential life skill as they do into their chosen professions, careers, even hobbies. It's mind-boggling. Story 24. That chief executive officers and owners should get a certain amount higher salary because they assume all of the risk. No, they don't. If the company folds, they claim bankruptcy, which is a difficult, expensive, and long process for normal people, but easy for the wealthy who have lawyers on retainer specializing in it and go try again. They really don't have any risk once they hit a certain level. Story 25. Something like 30% of Americans believe they will be millionaires someday, and that affects everything from the way they save money or do not plan for money or do not and vote. Story 26. Gonna pay off my house as soon as possible. I'll save so much money. Depending on your rate, you may not actually be saving money at all. Even if you have a current higher rate, it's probably close to a wash. The peace of mind it provides is fake. If you lose your job but save the money instead of putting it in equity, you're actually more stable. The only real benefit, and it's a big one, is not having to deal with more complex money management that most people don't understand. Mortgages are also a form of forced saving account, which is good for folks who can't just sit on money. But mathematically, the benefits of paying off your home while they exist are much more subtle than folks generally think, and the math is much more complex. Story 27. I still stand by and believe that some form of education is a necessity. The world is growing more and more competitive, and it's important to keep up. Not going to college, even community college, serves no purpose, and there are many systems in place to help people continue their path in a school setting. Story 28. Don't donate to charities at big stores that ask you to round up. They take your money, donate it, and then they deduct it from their taxes. Skip the middleman and donate directly. Story 29. That the economy and the stock market are synonymous. What is good for shareholders isn't necessarily good for the cost of living for people. Also, that housing should be an investment. That meeting basic needs or providing services like education should and can only be motivated by profit. That 401(k)s aren't as risky as they are. That savings actually saves substantively. That austerity helps most people. That the gold standard is meaningful. That the wealthy and the corporations invest their tax breaks in any meaningful way. That capitalists are job creators. That capitalism and free trade are synonymous. Trickle-down economics, cryptocurrency, multi-level marketing, hustle culture. That expecting endless growth in a closed system makes any kind of sense. That it's okay to exploit people across borders or people who cross borders. That unions are bad. That banks should be allowed to conduct business that conflicts with the well-being of their depositors. Story 30. That commodity prices like gas and eggs are falsely controlled by the president. They are actually priced on a trade market, bought and sold, with production controlled by large corporations. Story 31. The biggest financial myth holding people back is that carrying a balance on your credit card builds your credit. It's like believing a leaky bucket increases your water supply. In reality, it's draining your money with interest while lowering your credit score. Pay it off, live light, and let your credit shine vivid and clear. Story 32. Renting does not, in fact, look good on your bank statements when applying for a mortgage. Banks do not care if you have rented or for how long. They only care if you have good credit and a consistent income to cover a mortgage. Story 33. The biggest myth is that the United States government needs people to figure out their taxes. It's nonsense. They know exactly how much you owe or are refunded. Tax returns should be the exception, not the rule. Americans unknowingly marched to the post office on April 15th, but the reality is the Internal Revenue Service could easily do away with 90% of all refunds. Intuit and H&R Block fight this annually with heavy spending on lobbyists. Story 34. Doesn't sound like the individual knows what he is talking about. A tax return is the form that you file with the Internal Revenue Service. A tax refund is the money that was withheld and you get back after your tax bill is satisfied. Story 35. I always thought you had to invest in stocks to get rich, but then I realized my secret talent for saving pennies was my true calling. Who knew being frugal could be a superpower? Story 36. Trickle-down economics. Giving tax cuts to the rich does not benefit everyone as it is claimed to do. All it does is make the rich richer while harming everyone else due to lower tax revenues and reductions in public spending. Story 37. Vaccines cause autism. Like a lot of the people that believe this don't read articles or anything published by credited and fact-checked research on it at all. Story 38. That they will start saving for retirement when they are older. First off, no, you probably will not. Second, even if you do, you will have too much ground to make up after all that take-home pay to really make a meaningful dent. It is all uphill unless you start early. Story 39. That cheaping out on your laundry doesn't impact your clothes' lifetime. You can vastly improve the life and sustained quality of your clothes by not throwing everything in the wash together. Also, most better quality laundry detergents need less to clean better, so spending a little more on a decent brand will give you better returns. I have also found they wash out better too. Story 40. That they should live in a big city because that's where the high-paying jobs are. The trouble is that most jobs in big cities pay less than the cost of living there. Story 41. Not investing in the stock market because it's at all-time highs or they are waiting for it to come down. What people do not realize is that the stock market has continued to grow over time, and over each year or couple of years, it continues to reach new highs almost every year. It is the main way for middle-class people to actually build wealth.